This is Monica Perez here today with the author of Exposed, the Globalist Plan to Collapse Everything to Usher in a New World Order. In their own words, Allan Paul Roberts. Hi, Allan. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Monica. Thanks for inviting me on. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yes. So we agree on many things and we disagree on a few things. So
Okay.
it should be kind of interesting. But first, I want to say how impressed I am with how polished this book is, how well done it is. And I had to actually looked up the publisher because I didn't really believe it was a self-published book, and it's quite good. And you've certainly making the rounds on podcasts. So kudos to you all the way around.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, I worked to make it look. I wanted it to be worthy of something you'd see in Barnes and Noble when it would seem like it fit right in. So
Yep,
thanks for that. Appreciate
it
it.
sure does. It's very impressive. So I've heard many of your interviews. I would like you to share with my audience, even though I know you've told the story many times,
It's okay.
Your inspiration for the book, and how you came to write it. But if you could also step back and step forward one. So step back a little bit about yourself, and then step forward as like, who's your audience? Why? What's your purpose in taking the time to write the book?
Sure. So my background, I was in charge of international marketing for a mid-sized company for about 10 years before I went into business for myself in 2011. I run a small marketing firm, busy all the time. Prior to that, I'd been in manufacturing, chief operating officer for a different mid-sized company. I have an MBA. The only other long document I've ever written was my master's thesis, which is around 100 pages. Never wrote a book. This was a first-time thing for me. So yeah, busy guy, running a small business, a lot of times, trying to clean up on Saturday and finish up what I didn't get done. The last thing I was thinking of doing was writing a book.
Well, it's
So,
very
yeah.
polished.
Well,
So
thank
that because I was wondering, did you ever write a book before? But something in your past must have brought you the skill set that you could get it just perfect.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, a lot of so for our clients, we do a lot of SEO work that is content marketing driven. So it's a lot of blog posts and a very structured approach to it. So I guess that helped me in structuring the book, but just in writing and editing, I don't really write the posts myself, but I edit them. I have people that write them, and I'm pretty strict on how I think things need to be organized and communicated well quickly. And we do a lot of web design, and on that thing too, with a good website, it has to hit hard and fast. People coming in from a search, they need to get the point very quickly. And that's the style of the book, right to the point, not torturing you with a bunch of preliminaries, just like taking you right in and keeping it moving fast.
It's definitely so. It's about the globalist plan to collapse everything and usher in a new world order. It's very. I would say it has a pretty specific demographic in mind. In that, I've been kind of down the rabbit hole for well over a decade, like really down there. And even my father was skeptical of the new world order. I wouldn't be surprised if he used that expression. And so nothing that you said in that book was unfamiliar to me.
Sure.
But also it's not for like entrenched conspiranoids like I am. It's for people who aren't like, feeling around in the deepest of holes. But it's also not for people like hardcore normies who think you're insane to think 9/11 was an inside job. Like, you don't have to believe 9/11 was an inside job, but I've been ghosted. When I used to have a radio show, I had listeners email me all the time, and they would ghost me if I was like, I'm rethinking this 9/11 thing. And that was it. I was a kook right out of the gate. So it's definitely for people with an open mind, but who aren't fully immersed in conspiracy theories, mostly conspiracy truths, I would say. But some things are there to trip you up, I suspect.
Yeah, and I've actually had a friend of mine, an older woman who I used to work with, who I gave a copy of the book to. She was not into any of this.
Oh boy.
And I want to
What year after that?
test it on her. So, because I was concerned about what you said, even the title of the book's enough to get some people running the other way. But I wanted to test it on her, and her reaction was, "Oh my gosh, I never realized how the world works, and now that I see
Really?
it." Yeah, she even left a review on Amazon. Her reviews there, you can see it. But she was like, "Now that I know how it works, I have a lot of changes to make in my life." She was totally won over. Um,
Wow.
and so
I'm
the
not surprised because there's a lot. It's very approachable and digestible, and you have a lot of links that will offer support. Now, some of
yeah,
them I because like when I was on the radio, I really weirdly had to kind of gravitate towards mainstream, piecing together the puzzle from facts that were in the mainstream.
right.
So you gotta some people won't accept anything that isn't like, the New York
Yeah,
Times or the Wall Street Journal.
yeah.
So that if they've got a prejudice against that, they're not gonna consider it all supporting evidence. But if you've got an open mind, you're gonna see the truth, at least in what you're pointing out.
The videos tend to win people over.
Yeah.
So some of these you're hearing some of these globalists, talking in their own words, but other than that, you're seeing bankers. And I mean, there's a 2023 FDIC meeting where they're basically admitting that the banking system's fragile and we don't want the public to know it. And so there's a sprinkling of those kind of things in there too. And I agree. A lot of this you almost have to go to the alternative media to get the truth, because the mainstream media in many cases just won't go there. They're controlled. So it is a little bit of a paradox, but the videos themselves have a lot of power to kind of gently win people over.
See, here's the thing though, that where I'm probably further down the rabbit hole than you are, is
Okay.
that when I see something like that, or I think it was in 2019, I saw I think it was a World Health Organization symposium or powwow kind of closed door thing about what are we going to do about the problems with vaccines, autism or whatever. And I
Mm,
remember saying right then, they did not leak this for no reason. It's out there because they probably have a new kind of vaccine and they're going to discredit the old one. And similarly, if you're going to start talking about the fragility of the banking system, I've been an end the Fed girl for as long as I can remember. But if you end the Fed and usher in a central bank digital currency,
right.
they've turned the tables on you yet again. So,
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly. Yeah. Don't
it
throw
can
me
be
in the briar
disheartening.
patch. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be disheartening. Yes, for the rabbit
Yeah.
hole too. But it can be disheartening. However, the first step is to understand the true nature of things. And yeah, maybe they're 2 steps ahead of us, but it's better than 3 steps. So it's good to open people's eyes. I agree with you there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but what made you take time out of your busy life to write this book?
Yeah, so like I said, I was not planning this. It was maybe someday when I retire and really have time, I'll do a book, and no idea what it would be about. But I have thought I'd write a book all my life. But what happened with this situation in late April 2024? I think it was the last Saturday of 2024, around 4 a.m. I just woke up in the middle of the night. Go use the bathroom, whatever. I'm laying there. I didn't have a dream that I can recall. Nothing unusual. I woke up, I'm laying in bed, and in that, 30 seconds before you get out of bed where you're pausing, I had a what I call a flash of what I refer to as an instant knowing of 6 pillars of society that were under attack and in danger of falling. And this came uh, this came in the form of like it would be as if you walked into a room, flipped the lights on, and there were 6 things immediately in front of you. No pause, not one after the other, just bang, 6. Except they was nothing visual. It was an instant knowing of these 6 things, and it had an intensity to it and an energy to it unlike anything I've ever experienced. I've never had that kind of mental clarity in my life, right? And I didn't know what was causing them. I just knew that they were under attack and in danger of coming down. And it was like, whoa, what was that? And it lasted I don't know, 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes, somewhere in there. It's hard to judge time in that situation, but I got up, went into the bathroom, wrote. I keep paper and pen in there. I wrote those 6 down, and I'm like kind of blown away, but better write it down because it's 4 a.m. I hope I can get back to sleep. Go back to bed. I don't know, 30 seconds to 2 minutes later, another 3, the same way, 3 different ones in an instant flash, and all there at once. And I've explained this before to people. The thing that was just nuts about this is I could completely focus on all 3 or all 6 at the same time and understand them completely without being distracted. Like if you had 6 people talking to you at once and you could understand them all, that's what this experience was like, which is why it blew me away so much. So I wrote them down, back to bed again, and then 2 more. And at this point, I'm like, what in the heck is going on? I wrote them down. And so I have a daily prayer routine. So I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years. The first 30 minutes to an hour and a half every day is prayer, meditation. I have like a little prayer book, that's just inspirational things. I read that to get my head in the right place. Then I pray, and then I just shut up and just try to be calm and see what's going on and like what God might be leading me to that day. So what I'm trying to say is I had this frame of mind of being prayerful. So when this happened to me, I'm like, God, like, why are you showing me this? Because this isn't religious information. This is just very factual, almost like the news. Why would you be showing me this? And I'm just thinking, in my head, I'm thinking, do you want me to write a book or something? And I mean, if you wanted me to write a book, what would the title be? And boom, a flash. The title that you see on that was just instantly there. And
it's a pretty radical title.
The whole title was there.
But it's the globalist plan to collapse everything and usher in the New World Order, in their own words.
Yeah. Yeah. And so because it came in the same way as everything else, that instant flash, it's just like, okay, I'll research those 11, I call them collapse points, pillars of society.
Who am I to say no?
I'll research it and write it. I didn't argue. I didn't look for another sign. It was like, I'm all in, because it was so dramatic. And if that hadn't happened, this book wouldn't have been written. It just how simple it is.
Were you already aware that something was up, or were you just, listening to the news and thinking it was the truth?
No, I was into the alternative news media more as like a pastime or a curiosity. And I was extremely troubled about the border because of the alternative news media exposing the true situation at the border with, as I said in the book, the equivalent of the city of Pittsburgh coming across the border every 6 weeks. I'm a math person, so I do numbers and I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going on here?
You wouldn't have been able to flesh this out if you hadn't already understood, had your resources in your mind, or like what the problems were and how, just because there's a lot of research here and you couldn't have just popped onto that. Plus you'd have to have experienced it enough to recognize what made sense to you, what fit into the bigger picture.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. 2 or 3 I would have figured out. In other words, I was concerned about the border. That's one of the pillars. I was freaked out about what happened during COVID. So I knew something weird was going on.
Yeah, world government.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
And with the whole medical thing.
Medical, yes, for sure.
So there were like maybe 3 obvious ones, but the 11 all at once.
Oh, interesting.
No. Yeah. Totally different thing.
So let's talk about some of these. And, I'm interested in what you think the problems are, maybe what we can talk about solutions. I'm probably going to tell you why I think it's, what I think is a little one realm lower on the ladder going down. But I don't think we'll be able to hit every single one, but I think I wrote down the ones that I wanted to. Let's start with the medical system and then the border.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to jump through here. I got my notes there too.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure you've done this many times, and you have to. I mean, it's a lot to cover.
You would think when you wrote your own book that it would all be right there,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's just so
Stuff
much.
gets
So
crowded out. My brain is full, so any new information, something has to
yeah,
push it
something
out.
has to
Yeah,
give.
something has to go.
Exactly. So yeah, so the medical system, the first thing, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, and maybe many of your viewers
Yeah.
are too, but the John D. Rockefeller system, the birth of the Western medical industry, with John D. Rockefeller, who was an oil tycoon and who basically gave birth to the modern pharma system that we have, that replaced the naturopathic and holistic medicine that we've had that we had right up to that point, and how he was able to, through his power and wealth, basically take over the whole system, make it so that there's just one way to get certified through the American Medical Association. There used to be a bunch of different associations. And his whole, what we call the allopathic method took over. And that was the only way you could really get certified. And people who pushed back on that, a lot of them went to prison even. So, we're in this pill for an ill system now, the pharma system, a pill for an ill. Anybody who goes to the doctor probably has had this experience where you're on a conveyor belt. They want you in and out as quick as possible, and on your way out, the pharmacy's right there, and grab your medicine and go. But I had no idea that most pharmaceuticals are petroleum based.
Yes, and Rockefeller's father, the grandfather, I guess, or John D. Rockefeller's father, was a snake oil salesman, which is oil that's used as medicine. I have a book here, really expensive book, so I really hope I didn't misplace it, called Rockefeller Medicine. I don't know if it goes into all of those details, but a lot of them. And yeah, imagine how we would not have a financial crisis in medicine if it weren't for the AMA, for the requirement to have that super high level licensing. They're starting to they're starting to incorporate nurse practitioners and physicians assistants, but still it's highly controlled, very expensive. They've already got the system in place, the system that can't really work. And I agree with you, the pills, a couple of things that I noticed recently, I was starting to get sleep apnea, and people wear those machines that get like infected and stuff. I got a little foam wedge underneath my mattress. It's 5 inches on one side and 1 inch at the bottom. Never, ever had it again. Never. I'm not saying that's true for everyone, but I'm just saying no doctor said, try this first. Try it first. And I used to get cold sores, and Valtrex, the pill for cold sores, I think it's $30 a pill.
Yeah.
But it's a lysine deficiency. So, and lysine is $15, like for 1,000 or
Exactly.
100,000.
The same thing here. I use lysine all the time. It's
Yeah,
cheap.
it's amazing. It's for immune system. Stress eats lysine. So you
Yeah.
get stressed out, and you don't. And I mean, it's so simple. I was just saying the other day, I was like, I cannot believe people don't, that lysine isn't talked about more. And the person I was talking to was in the medical field, and he said, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Us recommended amino acid that is just a natural thing for your body. No way.
Yeah, and it's amazing what it does. Like, it's so clear that you have something wrong. And once I started taking that, I never got a cold sore again. I used to get them once a month. But anyway, so stuff like that, yes, would be very different. And especially during COVID, people were, like, got in serious trouble for contradicting what was obviously a horrible system of policies, which weirdly were uniform across countries. And which to me just demonstrates a de facto world government when push comes to shove.
Yeah, and in the book, it gets into this, the correlation between vaccinations and deaths. This Southern Hemisphere study that was, I think it was a 180-page report where they tracked. They didn't see a strong correlation between the first shot, but the boosters. Once the boosters came in, there was almost the shape of the graphs follow each other. Excess mortality and the boosters track right along. And Australia and some other countries in the Southern Hemisphere just have really good records, unlike us, where you got to file this onerous report, so hardly anything gets reported. But that was very eye-opening. And then the whole thing with remdesivir and Fauci
That was
recommending that.
terrible,
Oh my gosh.
terrible. People would go in and crash. I mean, that to me, that rises to a level of immorality where,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, you're gonna have a problem with St. Peter for sure.
Oh man.
Like,
Yeah.
you killed
Yeah.
all these people. Um, I just tweeted there was a study, like some spike in mortality in one demographic or another, and I read the study. It was consumable. It wasn't totally all jargon,
Hmm.
and they cross-referenced every kind of variable: gender, economics, race, geography. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, you're looking for a spike in mortality and you're not seeing who got what, what
Yeah.
jabs were when. I mean, it's just a completely invalid study. So, but it's a good idea to go look in other countries because um the I do despair that this is why I hate government research of any kind. I'm not a fan of regulation at all, zero, because they control it and they corrupt it. But I do think deregulation can be weaponized because then you can pick winners, pick losers. Once you have that super strict structure in place, if you let one, like I just heard Nvidia is allowed to sell chips to China. What a win when people are not even
Yeah.
allowed to buy from companies in other countries that deal with China. Nvidia, wow.
Yeah.
So
That
that's super powerful.
blew my mind too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I want to ask you about some of these things because but when they come up, just some of these things that I just don't. Well, I mean, Trump was President Warp Speed. I know you're a Trump guy, but
Oh, that's
that was
such a no,
bad.
no, no. That killed me. That killed me. I mean, I personally think he was tricked into that. They had that waiting, and they made it sound like, oh, we can develop it, but it was, from my
Oh yeah,
understanding, it had been developed and just waiting for an excuse to roll it out.
there. My mother was a huge. She died last year, but she was a huge Trump supporter. We were all sad that she didn't see him win the
Oh
second time. She
yeah.
would have been so happy. And I kind of was too skeptical to think even the Pope. I'm Catholic. Even the Pope, as soon as he got elected, I was like, oy vey, like this guy,
Yeah.
it's definitely set up. He's American. He's going to cause trouble, whatever. Wait and see, but I'm pretty confident. But she's like, you just thought he wasn't going to win. You got egg on your face and now you can't forgive him for winning. I'm like, that's definitely not it. I really, I'm happy that you're happy, Mom. But with the idea that he gets tricked or whatever, I think these people in power really cannot, don't, they simply can't dig into everything. But that also, the flip side of that is that that's true across the board. So when you see him put out an AI executive order that's full of unconstitutional stuff,
Yeah.
he either did it or he didn't do it, but he's signing it. And at a certain point, you have to take responsibility. And that, I think, is the Vance Teal thing. That's well, I would like to know what you think about the whole Vance Teal thing, if you have thoughts on that stuff, right?
Yeah, the whole AI thing and anybody being associated with AI, it gives you pause. You just I can't feel comfortable with that. I haven't I haven't done a deep dive
It's so
on it.
fun. I haven't really done
Yeah,
too much into it,
but
but
just the whole. I mean, we've all seen the movies about AI,
I
and
know.
it feels like our worst fears may be coming true.
Yeah.
But the problem is the whole world is going to it, and we can't like, let's say militarily, we can't risk our enemies having a significant AI advantage. So we have to go there, but it's a conflict, because how do you go there safely without introducing the whole slave system, where they take AI
Yeah.
takes over, and we're in this global tyranny. It's a balancing act, but I don't think we can run away from it and say no, we're not going to.
I
How do
I
you do it
understand.
responsibly?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have a couple of rebuttals, but I would
Okay.
ask you, do you think And if you haven't read it, I mean, there were like 4 of them, and I have to say, one of them was 26 pages, like the AI action plan, and they're pretty vague as they are. Like the bullet points are pretty big picture, so there's a lot to that. And then, but I have one. My first problem is that it's unconstitutional. Like it's
Yeah.
unconstitutional to even research is unconstitutional, and cramming stuff down on states. You won't get your funding if you don't adopt this federal model policy.
Yeah, no,
There,
they backed off that, right? Under
did they?
pressure. I heard they backed off
Did they?
that.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
just reading. I didn't see if there was a follow up press
yeah.
release in that on the White House thing, but I would say that yeah, if they have a, you know, with defense and tech and so much else, we spend more than half the defense budget of the world.
Oh, yeah.
So if we don't have our foot on the accelerator, this is why the Chinese have spies in our universities. We
Oh, yeah.
are the ones who are pushing it. So to say, I can see it's a little bit circular to say, well, we can't let them get ahead of it, but we're giving it to everyone. That's part of the executive orders, that we're giving it to everybody, and to think that Americans are going to benefit at this point, I think some oligopolists will benefit.
Yeah, I think the money goes down a black hole. I mean, how is it that Russia has better hypersonics than we do, if we even have them? How did they beat us to that at a fraction of the budget? Probably because theirs isn't all going down a black hole where it's all being stolen and greased. And I wonder how much of that defense budget is really spent on defense versus greasing contractors, hands and just disappearing in a black hole. I mean,
and I think it gets out. Like, I think that we invent everything.
Yeah.
And it gets out. So,
yeah.
So I do always, I like the Constitution, and I'm not going to be convinced that it's passé. So
no,
I'm willing to take my chances. And I feel like also economic freedom, it's so important if you don't have economic freedom, if you think that this command and control economy and tech spending and everything is the way to go, first of all, you're going to have a huge bubble that's going to burst. But I really believe in economic freedom. I think that we will land on top if we really have the courage of our convictions.
Yeah. And on the economic side, so I used to be in manufacturing, and we used to have lots of subcontractors. And I lived through the NAFTA thing where they all dried up and we had to go.
Oh, yeah. That was the point, right?
I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes, and I went to seminars where you were learning how to outsource, and I could feel the fear in the room. The fear is my competitor's going to get there before me, and I'm going to be out of business.
Yeah.
And but my point is, I think that Trump understands the value of bringing manufacturing back. So when you talk about the economy and economic freedom, I think we must bring manufacturing back, because I saw it in reverse. Do you remember when, I mean, I don't know how old you are, and I don't want to know, I'm not asking.
No, I would never tell you.
But I remember when everything was made here. I remember when calculators and TVs and washers and everything was made in the US, right? And then it seemed like almost nothing was made in the US. Things were maybe assembled in the US, but the real tech was outside the US, and all those jobs are lost, and all that money that would be spent internally on each other, buying from each other, is like a sieve going out to China, going out to India, just going out. So you don't get that velocity of money. I mean, it would be like if you paid your spouse to do something, the money stays in the family, right? You can buy groceries with it. You pay someone across the ocean that money, it's gone. It's not helping you at all. But that's what the country's like when you keep it inside.
It's also Hervoye who introduced us.
Yes.
He pointed out that, or he read that the point was in the beginning to make sure that the manufacturing networks and the supply chains and everything were cross-border, so that world government would basically be inevitable, that we couldn't extricate ourselves. And as far as Trump wanting manufacturing at home, I kept wondering, like, why would he want that? The reason I wondered is that some of that stuff is so much lower, like marginal productivity of labor, so that you're actually would be getting less money. Like if you do something super intellectual, like your hourly pay is higher. And why would you, the real reason is, I think the valid reason is that if there's going to be conflict, you need to have, it's like a Mussolini thing, or autarky. You have to be able to do your own manufacturing at home. But I'm so skeptical that our own government is on our side. And if they had a war, they would even want to win it. That I don't even, it's like they faked the moon landing. It's like, wow, that was really nice of them to try to let us look like we won. Are they really on our side enough to want us to prepare for, because that's a totally valid thing for a nation state to do, is to be prepared for war.
Yeah, I agree. But even if it wasn't about war, and I think it probably is, but even if it wasn't, your average manufacturing job pays a lot more than your average service job. So you take the middle class or the lower class.
Okay, yeah.
A factory worker can earn 50, 60. They say the average is around 100 grand. What's the average service worker making $15 an hour? Yeah.
Well, I used to be a waitress and I made a lot, but and now they're going to change that, so they get rid of tips and make $15 an hour. That would be terrible.
20 grand, I think it is.
But I wasn't thinking about those jobs being elevated. I was thinking more about the higher level jobs getting pushed down, which brings us to the border question, which is the anarcho-capitalist in me, like I agree with Milton Friedman. The only way to get around a minimum wage in a welfare state is illegal immigration. I'm not promoting, I'm not for open borders. I just, I think you can have no immigration, low immigration, sensible immigration, whatever. Or that's why I don't like the expression illegal immigration, not because it's not illegal, it totally is, but because immigration is the problem. It's not, or immigration is the issue that we should be addressing in a sober manner, not illegal immigration. So like when you're in Sweden and they have a lot of Somalians and Iraqis, those guys are not crawling under a fence. They're brought in, like that's a policy decision. So this idea that the illegality of it is anything more than just whatever plot they're up to, probably a way to get us to have like the surveillance state, or I don't know, but I'm more worried about the high end immigration, where they actually take the expensive jobs, because the lobbyists for the immigration are the tech companies lobby for immigration to push the wages down and take spots from our kids in college. Like that, once they're in, they're Americans, which is valid. I'm fine with that, but you're getting pushed down. So what is your thinking about that?
Well, I mean, I think that has to be controlled. There has to be limits on that. I know Trump has talked about that it just can't be this free for all where you're firing American tech people to bring in people from India at half the price or three-fourths of the price.
Pay for their own college.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
So that's an absolutely huge issue. I think on the other end, I'll call it the illegal immigration, where unskilled people are coming in who probably aren't qualified for factory jobs. They don't speak the language. They have no schooling. So I actually, in this whole NAFTA experience, I set up, I worked with someone to set up a factory in Honduras. And this person had set up several. And so they set up one for us that we subcontracted to. And he said, you would not believe it. Their education system is so poor that they don't know how to learn. You'll teach them how to do something. If they go off on like a Christmas break and come back, they forgot how to do it in many cases. So your ratio of supervisors to employees is much,
Wow.
much higher because they have to be constantly trained. So if you're bringing that level of
Yeah,
person across
I
the
got
border,
you. Yeah.
no good, you
You
know?
know what amazes me? I live in LA, so I was here for ICE protests and all of that kind of stuff, which of
Hmm.
course, I'm so cynical that it would not surprise me if Trump did that just to give Newsom a launching pad for 2028, but
Oh gosh, I hope
that's
not.
how bad I am. I know. I know it's bad. I'm jaded. But what amazes me is that the left has the audacity to defend illegal immigration. I'm like, hey, where's your Marxism? Don't you know they're here to push down wages? You're exploiting them? Like, what the hell? So
Yeah.
it's just crazy to me that what do they think they're doing? Think it's compassionate to defend people who are living like 12 to a room so they can take jobs that you wouldn't take? Like, they are supporting your cushy lifestyle, mom. And
Yeah.
I don't, so I just think it's so ideologically jumbled, this
Yeah,
whole.
I mean, I'm probably further down the rabbit hole on this particular issue than
Okay,
you
tell
because
me, do tell me.
no, I don't think the left is looking for what's good for America.
No, but their own bullshit is like, I care about these people, and I'm like,
Yeah,
well,
and that's
then,
exactly what it is. They
yeah,
don't
then,
care. They don't
yeah,
care.
I don't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes, I think it's they're just in their basket, and they just say, I mean, I actually see it because I have kids who are in college. And I remember when they were in high school, a couple of fancy schools they went to too, that the kids would literally, and they would complain to me like they couldn't have conversations because the kids would have to find out. There was such pressure to be liberal around here to find out what the answer is. Like, one of the questions was that the teacher asked, like, if you believe that American Indians were displaced by Anglo colonialism, should you give up your land?
Oh,
your
brother.
your house. So my son, who's very based, he said, yes, but I'm not going to. Like, I understand what you're saying, and theoretically we would not have title to the land. The house is mine, but it's my own fault for building on land that I didn't own. I'm definitely not doing that. And the other kids couldn't get their minds around the question. And the question is, we're not solving that problem, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to say. But you have the ability. It's like the Hondurans that can't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh
they
my
don't.
gosh.
I agree. They don't want they don't. They just don't. I feel like it's not even coherent.
Oh, they want to take the country down. You can't have a policy like let hundreds of thousands of people cross the border in a given month and say that this is a plan that all you want is voters. I don't buy that. It's too reckless.
Yeah.
It's utterly reckless, you
and
know.
and
Yeah.
it's unlimited. So
Yeah.
I'm a libertarian. I believe people have the right to work and travel.
Sure.
However, we have welfare, we have minimum wage, which destroys our labor market, and we bomb other countries and undermine their economies. The whole
Yeah.
entire, I think that's why JFK got killed. He was saying, I don't want a Pax Americana. That was his last speech. He said, I want a peace for all people for all time. I think he knew what was happening, and that we're far beyond the need for, I think technologically, far beyond the need for poverty. Like, if everybody had liberty and if we
No.
were a beacon of that, we wouldn't have these problems, but we do. And so when they were here, my answer was like, so are you proposing that anyone in the whole world who wants to come in should just come in, and that when they show up at the polling, I'm like, even if you want them all to vote, like, you don't want to show IDs, then you should just eliminate that as even a requirement. Like, they should
Yeah.
just be able to all come over and vote, right? I mean, how
It's
do you that's 7
craziness.
billion people.
You can't do it. I mean, and the analogy is, would you leave your door unlocked at night and just, the people walking around the street, you live in the city, just leave it open and advertise that it's open, like, hey, we're not locking our door, we're going to bed now.
And then
Um,
your neighbor getting mad at you for trying to tell them to get out. But you hit on the actual problem as a libertarian for me, is that they've removed your ability to really secure your own private property,
yeah.
to create associations where you can say, you know what, I really don't know these people. I'm sure some of them are nice people, but we're
Hmm.
building a fence around our town. you're not allowed to do that. It's illegal to do that. So you have to, so you have to then bring your need to screen for your own private property out to the borders, because they won't really let you control it yourself. So it's not, if it was on your own house, you could totally do it, but they won't even let you do that.
Yeah,
Really.
it's insanity. It's just off the rails craziness to me.
So, and so we were also, I think that is a nice segue into the education. What that is for sure a pillar that's got some major cracks in it, crumbling, as it were.
Yeah, that is one of the worst ones. And I knew it was bad, but I don't think any of us knew how bad it was until COVID came along and we started seeing these videos of what they were, I'll call it, not being taught, what they were being taught, which was the opposite of what they should have been being taught. And there's a video that I'd link to in that chapter on the education pillar of society. And Thomas Sowell,
Oh,
who,
yes. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, great guy,
Yes.
intellectual,
Fabulous economist. I just his standards of as an educator.
yeah.
I
And it's an
I'm
old
so impressed.
interview from a couple decades ago, and he grew up in Harlem, and he talks about that his education in Harlem, in the public school system in Harlem, is better than the private school education he can get today, or at that time of the interview, for his daughter. So he's a man of means. He has the wealth to put her in a private school, and that private school is not as good as his Harlem public school was. He said, our teachers did not care why you didn't get your homework done. You better have it done. You better get to school on time, whatever it takes. They didn't want to hear excuses. They taught us, they drilled us, they stayed on point, and we got our work done, and
I
he said,
totally
it's
believe
just
that, because
relax.
it's so simple. It's so simple. I mean, I think we've probably had 2,000 years now where they've had the trivium, the quadrivium, like where the tenets of good education have been very clear for a long time. Um, that's another thing that was good about Catholicism, but my father fought endlessly with the principal and the pastor and everything about the crap that they were teaching us in Catholic school by the time I went through it. And yeah, if you mean well, you could be a teacher without any training whatsoever. I could be a great teacher, and I would teach the kids to read and think and do math, and that's it.
Yeah, and maybe science.
Maybe, but if you can
Yeah.
read and do math, I think
Yeah,
you can just get a science book.
you
Like
can get through it.
and actually, when you take science and math and stuff, at um, some philosophy is that you learn it from the book, and then you just go to school to talk about the problems that you had working it out. And I think that's like how I remember learning computers too. It's like they can't just teach it to you. You have to really do it. And you could even do it online at this point. It could be so simple, because it is. And most
Oh,
of it's
yeah.
about you focusing.
Yeah, and what I came across in the study is, we've heard our education system in America is bad and that we don't stack up well to other countries, but I didn't realize how bad we are.
I
So,
saw that chart
oh
you
my
have in
gosh.
there. I was like, that's not so bad. And then I realized that it was measuring the worst. Like the US
Yeah,
was like super high on the chart. I was like, that's not so bad.
yeah.
I was like, oh wait, that's the
It's
worst.
the worst. Country struggling the most with math. There we are, right at the top of the. This is 18 to 29-year-olds, so that means that they learned this, a decade or more ago, and compared to other people who did, they don't remember it or they never learned it, and we're at the top, right above Italy and the UK and Spain and Ireland, and the ones who are doing great are like South Korea, Japan, Finland, the Netherlands, Belgium. And so these are 34 first world countries. This isn't, we're not going to Sri Lanka and things like that. We're comparing the industrialized nations here, and we're at the top of the list in terms of badness.
That reminds me of one thing that I think you talk about DEI a little bit. I don't know if you
Yeah.
call it that,
Hmm.
but yeah, talk about DEI. And I realized that they can't take race into account, I believe, at colleges at all anymore. And they
Right.
actually never could in California. So, or I mean, I've lived in California a couple of times, and I think the ruling in California was a while ago.
Okay.
But I'm a little worried because I do live in California, and the stand for two reasons. There's a lot of Chinese immigration here,
Yeah.
and raw, like if you buy into that, some places have higher IQs on the IQ test than others. China will outscore Europeans, for example, and Indians, and Indians outscore Middle Eastern, stuff like that. And also there's an ethic, to teach or work towards the test for purposes of, just an cultural,
Yeah.
maybe it's an immigrant thing, like, it might not even necessarily, it could be a characteristic common among anyone who would leave their own country and try to
Mhm.
make it in another country, that they are the most ambitious or focused or
Right.
whatever. I just wonder if that everybody in Harvard is going to be Chinese. I mean,
Yeah, 90% Asian. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if once you're born in America, it doesn't matter that you just revert to the McDonald's culture. I really don't know, but
I hear you.
I wonder
I've
what it's
thought the
all
same thing.
about.
It's like, be careful what you wish for kind of
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I feel like there's so there's another layer of the plot above, I think. What you're talking about are the specific pillars, as you say, but
Right.
with this Vance Teal thing, and maybe I've just been, the conspirasphere is just being flooded with this right now.
Mhm.
But when you see the I don't even know if I totally buy into the transhumanism thing, but I definitely think there's a control mechanism, a technocracy being put in place right now that's even higher than all this. And I think all of these pillars and their transformations really is what it's going to be,
Mhm.
feed into a bigger, more sinister plot. Do
Oh, it
you
is.
do
Yeah, oh,
you get that?
absolutely. I mean, the bottom line is world control. I mean, the whole thing of these 11 pillars is to tear them all down so that upon the ashes you can
Yeah,
build it back at better into the new world order. That's really the goal. So anything that tears the system down and replaces it with a control grid, to me, is a problem. And so I
yeah,
think the AI threat to me is that it's a major piece of that
yeah,
control grid to bring in this tyrannical system where your freedom is gone, where everything's tracked, where they know everything because it's all digitized, and your phone's tracking you, your iris scans are tracking you, the cameras are tracking you on the corners, and it's one complete AI monolithic system that knows everything in
and the
in in,
and the
in its worst
energy.
case.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the energy that it absorbs
Oh my gosh.
is not, I mean, it's that, again, immoral. Like, at that level, I love energy. I love my car. I love oil. I like gold. I like all the things God gave us to have economy,
Yeah.
to make stuff and do stuff and save energy, and
Yeah.
everything that human beings could do is made better by these natural resources that seem to have no purpose but to
Mm.
facilitate our our productivity.
Yeah.
But if you go in and say we need like 100 times that much energy so that we can replace your brain, which is totally fine, it does not need replacing. That to me is sinister. Like, that's like Luciferian, it's
Yeah.
just wrong. And I'm no climate change, I don't care about that. And to think that those people, that Greta isn't like, oh my gosh, AI. She's just like, ride a bike. I'm like, that's not going to solve the problem, Greta.
Oh yeah. It's crazy and so hypocritic.
Yes,
There's so much hypocrisy there that now all of a sudden coal's okay. Now all of a
I
sudden building
know.
nukes are okay because the
I
AI
know.
needs it.
I
Now all of a
know.
sudden we're all in and we're going to go full speed ahead. But crazy that we couldn't build that infrastructure until just now.
Yep.
We couldn't build it when you were screaming for your electric cars. You couldn't
No.
think ahead and build the infrastructure for that. But now all of a sudden we're all motivated.
Yep. It does give you pause, like
Oh
how far back they start the plotting
yeah.
and the planning. Um, so let me see, what was I going to say about that? Yeah, I am worried about, oh, I know what I was going to tell you. I came in from Europe a couple of
Mhm.
weeks ago, and this is not the first time it's happened. What happened like a couple of years ago too, I was with my son who has Down syndrome and had never been out of the country before. And like, people with Down syndrome can't be hypnotized. I'm surprised they can be
Mm.
facially recognized. Like
Oh, really?
he's like smooth. And but he'd never been out of the country before. And when he had a passport, but when we came in, we didn't even have to slow down. They read his face and he
Ah,
entered the country. So it's not even like, oh, well, once you pass through, you never have to do it again. So you just breeze through that you have a global face pass. It's
it's
just
like
done.
Minority Report is here,
Yes,
right?
I
Yeah,
love that movie. I just reviewed it for the show.
that's so good.
But yeah, it is so so good. So uh I am not a black pilled person. Like I have a couple of things that I think give us hope and
Yeah.
also things that I like to focus on that just make me feel personally have some dignity,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know. But so when as you dug into each of these things, I mean, it's every one of those things which are important are obviously seriously impaired, compromised. What did you walk away feeling black pilled? Do how do you, what do
Yeah,
you want to do
it's
with this information?
that is really the crazy dynamic that went on here is instead of feeling black-pilled, I felt energized and hopeful, which you would not think, doing the deep dive into each of these 11 pillars. But what I realized is that this is really all about an awakening, causing an awakening. Because I mean, look at the awakening that's happened just on the DEI, with Trump really the bully pulpit and shouting, from the rooftops and taking it out of government. He had the power to do that. But now other companies are rolling over and getting it out of theirs too. Schools are rolling over. And the DEI is becoming a thing of the past. Even comedians are commenting that it's okay to be funny again. We don't have to be
Yeah,
politically correct anymore.
I'm more into
Comedy's coming
comedy.
back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's an example of a tipping point that happens when there's enough of an awakening. And I'm convinced that I was shown these 11 collapse points to wake people up so that they will push back and that we'll get to that tipping point. I mean, best case scenario, we stop it all from happening. Worst case scenarios, we slow it down and maybe prevent it from happening in full. But I'm really actually very hopeful. And, I've looked back on this like, God, why did you show me this kind of thing? And I just keep going back to the story of Jonah and Nineveh. Jonah like runs from God. God tells him to go to Nineveh. He gets swallowed by the whale,
Yeah.
thrown up on the beach, finally goes to Nineveh, does what he's supposed to do, and his mission is 40 days and Nineveh is going to fall. 39 days, like Nineveh was like the New York City of that
Yeah.
time. It's a huge city. And he's going through, and the people believe it and they repent, and then Nineveh does not fall. So just because you've had I'll call it a revelation, an awakening, doesn't mean that the worst is coming. Maybe it's to stop it from coming. And that's how honest in my gut, that is what I really believe. And so I am trying to get everybody to read this thing and give it to people who haven't read it. Like I told you about my friend, the lady who read it and her eyes were opened.
Yeah.
And I've seen the power of it to change minds.
It is definitely a gateway book for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if people click through and they're not familiar, it is something that needed to be done because if you it's just to search around on your own and try to get the
It's
answers to
too
all
hard.
of these
It's
things,
too
it's
hard.
too hard
It
and
gets you
we
around
don't
the
have
whole thing.
time.
So I mean, what it does. So yeah, it's the 11 pillars, and it goes into each one of these, and so it can open your mind there. But on the front end, it's what is globalism? Who are the globalists?
Yeah.
What are they trying to accomplish? What
Yeah.
have they
That's
accomplished
true. You open with that. That is true.
what have they accomplished so far? And then on the back end, it's what do we do about it? How do we
Yeah.
prepare? How do we get the word out? So it's like a full scope 180 or 360, I guess you'd say, that even for somebody who kind of knows this stuff, maybe not like you do, not at your level, but somebody who's kind of familiar with it already, watches shows like yours and other shows, kind of into it, this kind of like ties everything together and gives you, it's got 170, it's got 100 QR codes that
Yeah.
are videos that you can
Yeah.
share. So, you pull
Yeah,
up
you
the
click
QR
on it.
code
Yeah,
on
I
your,
did that. It's very easy. It's super cool.
yeah.
I
So
don't
these,
it's the first book I've had that's like that, and,
yeah.
that's why I was wondering, it's like, did this guy write a book before? Because that's kinda edgy. Like, that's a
Yeah,
cutting edge kinda thing to do.
yeah, and but the thing is, then you have it to share, so you can share that link with people.
Yeah.
But the best thing is that they just read the whole thing and get their brain around what we're facing and get on board. Yeah.
So so for me, uh, thinking that Trump is on the outside, not the inside.
Yeah.
That to me, I'm like, I can't buy that. However, the advantage of your openness to Trump is there are a lot more people who. So I think they did this with. I think Trump may have. Again, I'm way further down the rabbit hole. I think not necessarily Trump. I don't. I almost feel like it personifies him too much to say like he's responsible for all of this. But
Yeah.
I believe that to the extent the Teal Vance Musk thing is the technocracy is something they wanted to accomplish. I feel like the conspiracies, which are true, are being exploited to foster faith, trust in the truth that those guys are then saying, we get the truth, we're going to tell. And then all of a sudden they've got a backdoor to technocracy. But the benefit is, 80 million people, or how many people voted for Trump this time? Like people.
Probably more than the official number.
Yeah. So people, the fact that, like if I wrote a book like this, nobody would like it on either side. Like people, I live in LA and I don't have a problem with Trump for the reasons that they do. I'm like, no, USAID should definitely be defunded. That's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
good for him. I just think he's an actor. But that just freaks people out because they hate him and they want to hate him. I don't hate him at all. I just don't
You just
buy
don't
it.
trust them.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
but so like nobody would like a book like this if I wrote it. But if but people who understand those problems, can't articulate them, don't really understand where they're coming from or what to do about it. I think it's very approachable for those people, and it's friendly to people who haven't totally given up yet. And
Yeah.
I haven't totally given up. I actually think the reason there's so much propaganda 24/7 of propaganda, you point out, like the alt media is our only hope. And the regular media is totally hopeless. I would say like 75% of the alt media is too. But the reason is that the powers that be, they can't, if you stop to breathe for a minute, if you stop to think for a minute, I think the thing comes crumbling down.
Oh yeah, I think the whole thing's very fragile, and the reason I guess I give Trump some grace, if you want to call it that, is that he is facing a problem that's bigger and tougher than anything. I mean, could any of us come close to accomplishing what he's accomplished? Just talk about the good things, closing up the border, getting investment back to America, getting rid of the DEI, basically generating faith in America again, kind of like Reagan, being a cheerleader, getting.
I did love Reagan, but if you look at the debt, they're similar.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, in Trump's first term, America was coming back. The middle class wages finally were going up for the first time, real wages in a long time.
That debt was insane.
Yeah. And so he's a businessman. He just wants to get crap done. I mean, that's what it is with him. I believe, because I can relate to him. And it's like you want to get things done. He is a person who all his life is getting stuff done. He's unconventional. I don't believe he's a true conservative in the full sense of the word, nor is he a liberal.
He's not a constitutionalist.
He's his own. He's a practical. It's all about what's practical.
It's pragmatism. Yeah.
It's transactional too. And it may not always be looking at, everything from a purist point of view. I think it's very transactional, and he just wants to get it done. But I also think he realizes the danger in, and we don't have a lot of time, and we have to move fast if we're going to stop it from all coming down. That's my opinion.
Here's Harry, who is a true blue part of our community here, and he just bought your book.
Awesome.
So,
hey, thanks, Harry.
So I doubt that he's not as far down the rabbit hole as I am. So that's awesome. That's great. I appreciate that. So, well, let's tell people then how to do it. This is the globalist plan to collapse everything to usher in a new world order in their own words by Allan Paul Roberts. And
Awesome.
Do you want to tell people the best way for them to buy that or follow you? Do you keep up on blogging at all? Is Amazon the place to buy it? What do you want people to know?
Yeah, so it's anywhere you can buy online books, you can get it. I like to send people to my website, which is globalcollapsebook.com, because if you go there, you can get a signed copy for the same price as an Amazon copy. And I actually created a promo code for you. It's just Perez. And you'll actually get the book, even if it's one copy, for less than the Amazon price. Ooh. And there's opportunities to buy it in bundles as well to kind of spread the word to the normies in your life that we're all concerned about, to try to wake them up. So that, they're in sets of 3, 6, 12, and 18. And believe it or not, I am selling sets of 18. People are getting, sometimes it's once they read it and then they're like, okay, I'm in. So definitely, let me help you get the word out there. Anybody that's written their own self-published book knows that you're not going to make money on this. I mean, I'm so far down the red side of the rabbit hole, but I am trying to get the word out. My point is, I don't care. I have a certain amount I'm spending every month beyond what comes in, and I'm just going for it because I believe it was given to me for a reason, and everything is about getting the word out. That's all I care about.
Well, I have to say, I admire that you followed through, and just am really impressed by how well done it is. I feel like the Thomas Sowell thing, like there are no excuses. Like, well, I did it myself, so it's like a little messed up. It's not. It's awesome. It looks really good. I definitely did a double take, and I appreciate that. And I hope that you do get support. It's the best place to go. Would be globalcollapsebook.com, and the promo code is Perez. Is that any caps or anything? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter either way.
Doesn't matter. Good. Yep. Excellent. All right, I am going to say goodbye to these people. I want you to hang on. I want to make sure the recording's good after we end the stream. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Allan Paul Roberts, for being here. And it's been a pleasure speaking to you. It's been a blast. Hope we can do it again. Glad. Oh, sure. Okay. Thanks, guys. This is Monica Perez.